Hey guys, welcome back to another day on the shop. Those are my 3 dogs. That's a Ford Focus. We're working on it today. I don't want to. The clutch is slipping pretty bad, so we get to replace the clutch. It's not inexpensive, it's very expensive for this dumb clutch. So yeah, let's get into this. So this is my 2014 Ford Focus SE dual clutch automatic. I don't like it. I'm ready to be rid of it. If you saw my other videos being in Colorado, walking by one of the garages, there was a guy with his girlfriend's Ford Focus, and he said he was having a whole lot of wiring issues. So my advice to anyone that owns a Ford Focus, before you get to this point, get rid of it. Go buy you a Honda or a Toyota. It's in your best interest. So this is one of the worst cars I've ever owned. It's done somewhat good. I mean, we have put almost 50,000 miles on it in 2.5 years. Well, 2 years. My wife drives the mess out of it, but we've had AC issues, we've had overheating issues, tire wear issues. I mean, you name it, we've had it. Airbag lights, yeah, just any and all. So just do yourself a favor. Don't do this. But let's take a look at this clutch, and we'll start there. So this clutch is no joke. It weighs probably about 50 pounds in this box. We got the Luke Rep Set 2 count, which is the apparently it's Ford's replacement. So we've got the clutch right here. That's the clutch pack. It's 2 clutches in here, ready to go. Then we got this mess of parts, which are bearings, throwout bearings, and little fingers, and yeah, and then some other doodads to go along with that. So yep, that's what we get to do, and it's not going to be fun. I'm regretting wanting to do this. So anyway, now that we have the clutch right here, we're going to put this box back together, since you kind of got to take a quick look at what we're dealing with. And we're going to set this to the side, because I get to have the fun of lifting that up and pulling the transmission out, which is right there. And the joyous part is I don't have a lift, so I get to do it on the floor. Yay! So mainly what we're going to do is we're going to lift this thing as high as I can get it, because it only makes sense to get the front as high as you can, so when you drop that transmission down you can pull it out, because otherwise you got to drop the transmission, lift the car over the transmission, and that's no fun. So we're going to put some whatever you want to call these ramps, tire or oil changing ramps, on the back, and we're going to use our heavy duty tall jack stands up front. So the first thing we're going to have to do is rip apart all this, everything on top of the transmission, and then undo the wiring harness for the transmission and the linkage. And then I think this is the only axle we're going to have to deal with. So first thing is, I always like removing the hood. So we're going to pull the hood off. I'm going to mark where each bolt goes, make it a little bit easier to put it back together, because the alignment part is the part that I don't like either. But yeah, we got quite a long way to go to get that out, this in, and then the trans back in. So, and oh, I will advise, you will need to reprogram the transmission. So I'm going to try it with my my diagnostic tools that I have. I have 2 different ones that should be able to make this recalibrate itself to the transmission, because it has to find all the thicknesses and whatnot of the clutches so it will work properly. So we will use a reset tool and the scan tool for that. So yeah, we're gonna have to start tearing all this out now. Well, it's moving pretty fast here. So intake's off. It was pretty simple. A couple of 8mm bolts on the intake itself, and then a 1/4 inch that holds the clamp onto there. These are little push fittings right here. There's 2 of them. There's this one, and then there's this one. So you just push the little tabs and they should pop off. This wire went to this, which goes to the box with the battery box. The battery box, this part doesn't take anything, but you need 10 for positive negative. Just unhook that, it'll give you a little bit more room instead of having that plug right there. You need a 14 for this to come off, which comes down here and plugs into there. And then let me think if there's anything else I can think of real quick. Oh, a 15 to take these off, which actually holds the battery box in, but this is also the mount for the transmission. So with that, we are here. And I've been looking, it's dark in there. Been looking at it, and looks like I have the shifter right there, and then I need to pop off the shifter bracket right here, because there's 2 bolts right back there, and then there's 2 bolts back here on this side, and then there's 2 bolts coming from the engine side on the back side. So yeah, and then there's a wiring harness. So we're gonna knock all this out on top, and then we're gonna raise it up and start working on the bottom, which means wheel comes off, axle, and then I'm probably gonna be safe and use the engine hoist to pull this transmission down so it doesn't crush me, even though it's probably about 50 or 60 pounds, maybe a little bit more, but it'd be a pain in the butt. And to lower down, you can do it with a jack, I guess. We'll find out, but safety first, or third, or whatever. I got that right there. So yeah, next is all the rest of that. And the reason why I'm popping the hood off is it just makes it easier to get down in there and not hit my head on all that. You shouldn't really have to, but why not? It just gets out of the way. So get back to it. So it's another hot day. All right, well, we got the car up on jack stands and everything. I popped the bolts off up here. There's 2 over here, there's 1 over here, and then 2 on the back side. I moved the heat shield right here to kind of get more access back there. I did take the plate off for the throttle cable and popped it off. It just takes a screwdriver. It's that little nipple right there. You can see that good. Yeah. And then, yep, now I've got the starter. I'm replacing parts down here already. I'm replacing the tie rod end right here because it's got a little bit of play in it. And then up here I'm replacing the sway bar end link because it has a little play in it. Because I have a little shimmy while I drive and I want to get rid of that, and that's the only way to get rid of it. But as I'm doing that, I also have to pop this castle nut off right here for the axle, and we're going to pop the axle out of the transmission because there's no real way to get the transmission out without doing that. So we're going to do all 3 of these real quick, and then move to the next thing, and which is going to be starting to take the bottom bolts off the transmission and the starter bolts off, and then the whole thing should start dropping down. So yeah, not much more to go. Let me get this castle nut off and these other things off, and we'll be moving smooth. Well, I've got both axles almost out. This control arm and all is off now, so I don't have to worry about that with that bottom ball joint. The axle's still in. There's 2 13mm bolts that hold it in on a little brace down below, somewhere down there that I gotta get. And once I do that, we'll move it over to where the steering is, which is back in the back right there. And yeah, so that'll take care of the passenger axle once I pop it out. The driver axle, I don't know if I've shown y'all, but it's sitting inside the trans still. It is popped loose from here. I didn't have to pop it loose, but I did. And yeah, now it's starting to rain. Joy. So all my connectors are all undone up top. All the hoses, everything else are undone. I undid a couple of the bolts up top. I got the starter left, and then the flex plate bolts, or the flywheel bolts. Flex plate, flywheel, I don't know, it's automatic, but it's got clutches. So I've got to do those nuts off there, and then once I do that, I should be able to unbolt the rest of the trans and drop it down. My suggestion would be, because they are heavy, so they don't just fall out and crush the case. There's a little hook right here, little hole, and if you have an engine hoist like that, you can get a chain and put a bolt or whatever else to it to grab onto that, put a little tension on it, and it should drop straight down after we get done with the rest of these bolts and everything else. So let me hop down here and start removing stuff. All right, up under here, this is the passenger side over here. This is the back of the engine. Here is this little axle bearing clip. They say it's a one-time use only, but yeah, we'll find out. So we're gonna take this off, and then we're going to pop the axle out of here. Probably good to drain right here the fluid out so that it doesn't pour all over you once you get the axles out. So yeah, I'm gonna do that, but before you sit there and drain that, make sure up here, if you can see it, move my light. Let me move my light again. I can't. Right here is the fill plug. If you can see anything that I'm doing, I'm having trouble with my light. Right here's the fill plug. Make sure you take this out before you take this out, because you can't refill it. Even though you're gonna have it out, it doesn't matter, because you'll probably get better torque on this once you get it out. But yeah, it'll be helpful. And I gotta pry this axle out right here and get that out. It'll probably drop out with it, but I don't feel like dealing with that anyway. And then got the starter that I'm gonna leave hooked up. I'm just gonna move it out of the way. I removed the 10mm bolt from up top, and then right here is another 10mm, and looks like a 13 right there holding the starter in from the bottom. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to start seeing if we can get in there to undo the flex plate flywheel bolts off the clutch, and then we'll start popping all these off right here and getting all those off, and that will be very useful to pop all those off and drop the transmission. Oh, and you have to also undo that. This is a mount back here that you have to do, and it's probably easiest to just take this one off because there's like 4 bolts holding on to it. So yeah, drain fluid, axles, starter, flywheel bolts, and then these little things. So let's get to it and knock this out. All right, well, it wasn't too bad. I don't even know where my flashlight is. Moved the starter down there, and then just took a 21. Oh, here's my flashlight. Took a 21 and moved the crank over. It's very easy. 13mm is the nuts for the clutch. So those are all off. I made one round and then did another round to make sure I got them all off, so I'm not fighting it. Now it's time to hook it up on the cherry picker engine lift, and then loosen the rest of the bolts and drop it, because I got both axles out and moved and all wiring and everything else. So it's just a couple bolts and it should fall right out. So that's the next step to this. Let's make this happen really quick. All right, so we are ready to drop it. I had to take this motor mount out, or this transmission mount out here, and off the transmission because it was hitting the frame right there. I have a jack up under here, as you see, holding the engine up a little bit, and we just need the extra clearance to clear the flywheel. So now we are ready to drop it and make sure we don't hit anything on the way down. So do this very, very slowly, and because you don't want to have to replace a wiring harness or a hose when you got all this other stuff already wrapped up in your money as an $800 clutch. 650, whatever, still. So let's not drop this thing. Let's get this thing down. All right, just lowered it down. As you see, I have an extra long chain on it to make sure that this clearanced very well, and it did. Now I gotta get this thing off. Okay. So now everything should clear. Move this hunk of junk out of the way and then pull that out. So let's do that. All right, there we are, and there's my working surface. I'm gonna put a little thing up under there so that if it does decide it wants to pour some fluid out, yeah, it won't go all over my floor. But here we are. Here is our nasty rusted clutch, and we're gonna pull this out and figure out the next ordeal with this. Starting with, there's a bunch of snap rings. So as you see right here, snap ring right there. Once you pull that out, there's this little doohickey that holds it in place, and then we'll get to the nitty gritty. But look at this. That's all clutch material. All of it, every bit of it. That's nasty. So we're gonna clean this case up as well, because I don't like putting stuff back this dirty. So let's get to this. Yeah. All right, starting out, this little snap ring right here, I just used a screwdriver. There's little grooves around here that you can just pry into and push it out and then just work your way around. This little gear right here sits on top of there and it holds it in. So once you get it in there, you'll see that once the clutch is aligned, it drops in, and when it does that, which there's only one way to really put it in here, and it's off. So, but yeah, this thing drops in there and we're good to go. So we pull that. This is a method I've seen before. They say you need a removal tool, which is a lot of money, and there's no reason for it. And man, look at that. No wonder my thing is bad. Got a bunch of broken springs in here all over the place. No wonder this thing rides so crappy. This might fix all my issues. But anyway, you take your old nuts, put them on there, 10, 11 millimeters, and then you take it in your hand and you just jolt it up until you can pry it a little bit just to get some momentum going with the pry bar behind here as you go around. And once you knock it loose from it, you just pull it out with that. That's what I'm going to do. Also forgetting, but there's another snap ring right here. So remove that snap ring before you start prying and pulling. All right, well, after some jolting and prying with a little pry bar right there just on the sides to loosen this thing up, it worked. So now you got these little two bushings right here, or bearings, whatever you want to call them. They come out. You can put right there. This little assembly comes out, goes right there. And then we have to take these out, and we have to remember which one's which. And then on top of it, this little mechanism right here comes out. There's also seals inside, and I'll have to look at them to see how they look. But yeah, there's a seal in here and a seal down here. So I'll have to look at both of them just to make sure they're good to go. But yeah, there's a lot of clutch material in here. These springs are busted quite badly. And yeah, that's just not good. And then here's more debris. So as a clutch material, I can't see how much is worn off. I wish I could, but these are enclosed, so you can't really see. But I'm gonna get rid of these broken springs and fix all this. So let's do that. All right, so we got everything taken out. We had to loosen up the actuators a little bit to get things out. The actuators, they take, you can do a 6 mil, but you might round them off as cool as I did, or you can use this E10, which works really well too. So yeah, those are out. Those are out. These you can use an 8 mil on, or you can use the appropriate size. These are a T45. So the T45 gets those out. And just remember, small ones on the bottom, big ones up top. And now we got to clean all this, because yeah, make sure these surfaces are very, very clean and not scuffed up and everything else. We're going to clean everything up, and then we're going to pull this out this little tube and do that. I'm going to get my vacuum out and some spray and vacuum it out and then spray it and scrub it. Let's do it. Well, it's cleaner. It looks a lot better actually. Now I got to take these bolts out, these 3 bolts, and then we'll get into the kit and start looking at everything we're replacing. So let's pull that out, and yeah, we're gonna get this thing back together and back in there. So let me pull that out. So that took a T30, and look, I got a brown seal right there. So it's been replaced, or it's a newer one, I don't know. But there's that right there. Boop. So now we got all this stuff. See, here's the first thing right here. Look, bolts and stuff. So we're gonna pull that out. Next, we got these assemblies. Oh, that one's come apart. Put these assemblies to the side. Look, we got this. Cool. All right. Then next, we got the clutch assembly. Look, no broken springs. Wow. It might ride a little bit better instead of jumping back and forth. So yeah, let's throw all this back in. All right, so here's all what it comes with inside. You got the 3 clutch to flywheel bolt or nuts. You got new bolts for your actuators. You got new bolts for your forks, and you got new bolts for that little thing in the middle. And then you have one of the snap rings right here, and I think there's another one in here, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, we're gonna work our way around and make sure we get everything where it goes. So starting out with these. All right, so that little doohickey's in. Now it's time for the forks. Let me put this fork in first. Line it all up, how it goes. These little doohickeys go in these holes. Make sure they're all lined up into the holes. Make sure that's lined up, and then do the same thing to those. All right, bearing support, that's what that's called. That's in. All right, it only goes one way because you have that little tab. These go in, and then the markings on here and the humps line up with the humps and the markings on there, on both sides. And make sure you take these little squirrel cages things off. They're trash after that. So, we got all this. We're ready to go with the bearing and bearing support. Let's do that. All right, so the bearing goes in only one way. There's a little piece on here, a little keyway on the bearing support, and that's the only way it goes. And then these bearings, or these, whatever you want to call them, shims, plates, whatever, they go on top of each layer, and they sit a certain way. So make sure you have them and try and have this thing as straight up and down as possible, because when you bring and put the clutch in, it has to sit flush on there, otherwise it's out of alignment. All right, I use definitely no special tools. I use 2 screwdrivers to get this snap ring in because I don't have the special tool. All right, now this little doohickey, which aligns on the threads right here, only drops in one way. I just ate a fly. That is nasty. All right, so now we just have to adjust this to accept that on the silver part right there. Look at that, right there. Now we put the other snap ring in, and then boom, we are almost done. All right, the snap ring only goes in one way. Where this little dot is, there's a piece of plastic right there where the opening of this goes, like that. So we're gonna press this in now and get it in right. Definitely no special tools with that. I use my fingers for that one. It is done. Clutch is in. Now they have little clutch, what do you want to call it? Locks or assembly latches that have to be let go of. So now we have to take the actuators all the way out, like so. Oh, we got new bolts for these. And now we get to take a little tool or a certain bit, stick it in there, turn it until you hear clicks, and then it's ready to install back in the car. Let's do this. All right, using the T40 again, I'm gonna stick it where the actuator goes, and it basically does the same thing it needs to. So go. All right, we are ready for actuators to go back in. We are ready for the car to accept everything again. The clutches are released, everything is good. We are ready, except for these bolts. It's back together. That's not, but that is about another hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe a little bit more, I don't know, to get this back in here. I'm gonna get under here and look at everything, check it out, clean it up a little bit. Then lift this sapphire back up, put it back in place, and then start aligning where I need to align. And I'm gonna pick out a reference point on there, and a reference point on here, because there's like a balance. Here's my balance right here. That's a balance piece that goes against there on a balance piece. And when you do that, that's where these two bolts line up. So you have to do it a certain way, otherwise it will be kind of out of balance a little bit. But slap this back in there, put fluid back in it. Relearn procedure. So we'll get back to everything when I get this in there, and the relearn procedure with a scan tool. So I'm gonna take a break, go eat some dinner, and then you'll see me in a minute driving this thing. All right, so it's all back together. And now I'm performing a reset and clutch learning dealio. Don't like that sound. So what I have is it's called a Think Car Diag 2. It's down there. It plugs up into the OBD2 port, and then it comes up on your phone, and it has a whole lot of functions, just like the more expensive style of scanners and whatnot. So I can do a lot of different tests on here. You can see any of that. It's all transmission stuff. So this is all the adaptive learning, and that's what I'm doing right now, is going down and learning the transmission. So we're going to do this a few times and learn the clutch, where it's at, and everything else as of the parameters of the shift forks. And then after that, we're going to hit the road, and yeah. I've cranked it up and I moved it. I put it in reverse and put it in drive, and it moves, but I want to make sure that it's synced up good with the car, and the car has learned the position of everything. So that's why I do this, and it has to be performed after a clutch install so that it doesn't mess up the clutches. So I'm going to start doing that. Well, I've read about this, and my car is not wanting to do the adaptive learning for the clutch. It keeps failing. So I'm trying it, and I've started it, and I've turned it off, and I've cleared all the codes, and I went to the TCM and reset it, and reset the transmission, and I've done all this to do research and find out you can probably do this without this. But let's see. But all these are incomplete, and then it gives me a rundown of the test has failed. And yeah, failed test right there, if you can see that. So yep, so we're going to do adaptive learning the other way, which is we're just going to drive it, and it should, after you reset the trans, it should learn itself, and you should be able to drive it. It should get better over time. The way it learns is you have to shift the gears as of reverse and drive a couple times for the forks to start engaging. And once it starts engaging, the transmission and TCM will start learning where these points are, and it will adapt to that, and then it should drive smoother. If it doesn't, you're going to need another scan tool, or in my case, I don't know, I got to get something a little bit more in depth. But with everything else, this does do all my special functions, and I absolutely love it. It is a lot better than my $180 Harbor Freight scan tool, which So $180 is a pretty decent scan tool, but it doesn't do nearly as much as this one, and this was less, I think 120, and it does every single possible manufacturer, and it goes into detail of all these special things it does, and my other one doesn't. I also have another one. It doesn't do as good as this. But if you want to check out this this scan tool, the Think Diag 2, it's in the link in the description below, as well as the clutch that I got. It's a clutch set. It's about $650 on Amazon. Comes with everything you need, as you saw in the video. But I'm going to go learn, or let the car learn, how to shift. So I want to thank you for joining into another episode of The Shop, and until next time.